Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
There's a difference between running a business for money and building one for a mission. James doesn't know the difference. He lives it. If you've ever wondered how to stay profitable and purposeful, this episode might be for you. Hello, everybody. My name is Dean West, and this is Partnerships for Profit. We are stepping into the boardroom today with James Wellington, CEO of Wellington Capital Management, now known as Viridian Planning, and a powerhouse of faith-driven leadership in the financial world. So this one's for the entrepreneur who's done with separating faith and business and wants to build them both at the same time. James, what's up, man?
Oh, just living life, man. How about you?
Oh, chasing James Wellington to get him to come hang out with me on a podcast.
You didn't have to chase me too bad, man.
Give me a quick background, dude. What brought you into creating Wellington that then became Viridian?
Yeah, so a couple of things, really. I had, kind of always had a background in faith. I kind of always, I always wanted to get into something that I would be able to kind of give back to the community and the public. So it actually began with a nonprofit that I created a few years back, and then obviously decided to go back to school, got my finance degree when I was like 30. So, it's never too late. But then I got into the financial services industry, did that for a little bit, but I decided to kind of go off on my own. And through that, I found a cool little, essentially, business entity that is called a public benefit corporation. And it's much like a nonprofit, but it is for profit. And so we are required to give a portion of our revenues back into the community, through various community initiatives. So that is, that's pretty near and dear to my heart. Not only do we give to a company called God's Garage, what they do is they give actual cars to single mothers who maybe not have the income sources to be able to go afford one on their own. We also like to be able to kind of create different financial initiatives in certain communities that are maybe not as, they're not funded properly to be able to kind of have that financial education that's really so vital to the young people these days. And they don't teach it in school. So that's kind of where it all started. And then funny story, there's another company called Wellington, and they're about $1 trillion asset under management firm, and they have the same last name as I do. So I decided to let that go for as long as I could, and then I decided to rebrand absolutely everything. So that's what we did.
I love it. I like Viridian. I'm digging the logo back there. It's a pretty powerful house,
Absolutely. Hey, it's a sign of transformation,
I like it. So give me, what is it that wanted you to approach your business from this faith base versus, obviously every business is in this for the financial gain. It's kind of the purpose of the business, but right. What is it that I would say blankets over that for you?
I would have to say I'm a man who stands behind my values and my morals, and I like to wear them, with as much pride as possible. That's why on the top of our website, the first thing that you're going to see is Romans 8:28, and that's all things work together for good for those that love him. So, I believe that everything works for the good. I believe that the good, the bad, the ugly, I believe that it all kind of comes together to be able to work out at its absolute best.
I like it. So if you had to, take the initial, here's the top 5 things that you guys do best there. Why would people be coming to you specifically?
So specifically, not only are we a business financial planning firm, but we also specialize in cost segregation. Most people are not familiar with this, and that's what I like to educate on the absolute most, is because it's so many people think that it's just for large corporations, or it's just a tax deduction for only the wealthy, or you have to have so much real estate to be able to even do a cost seg study, to be able to get the massive deductions that you can get. And, one thing that I really try to educate people on is the simple fact that the same things that are there for the wealthy are there for the ultra wealthy. They're there for the poor. They're there for anybody that has real estate, right? Whether you lease it, whether you own it, it's something that everybody can take part in. But the other part of it is if you look in tax code, there is something called permissible and impermissible. Well, typically your normal CPAs or your accountants are going to straight line depreciate any real asset, right? And, they're going to take the asset class, life, and then they're going to take the cost basis of whatever that was. They're basically going to divide it and divide that over, 39 years if it's commercial, or, 27 and a half if it's residential. Well, what we're able to do through a cost segregation study is we are actually able to do it the permissible way, because we don't want to pay the government near as much money as what we have to already. So the permissible way to actually depreciate an asset is to do a cost seg study. So that's basically breaking down the whole entire building, from the drywall to the studs to the conduit to literally the whole entire building. And then you're able to depreciate each part of that, one by one. And that ends up happening is a rapid depreciation of that asset year one. The cool thing about it is, like a client of mine out here in Houston, he owns a CNC machine shop. We were able to do over a 3-year period of time, $3.4 million on a $6.7 million building. Yeah, it's incredible. So not only are you, getting back the investment that you had put into it, right? Or, the lease payments or, whatever you have going into it, but then you're also able to get essentially a net present value of cash out of that portion of that 3 million, right? So then we're able to essentially take that and then reinvest it back into his business, because he does want to scale, as most businesses do. They want to scale. So what we're able to do is now we can go buy another business, or we can, get him into some alternative investments, or, possibly a tax deferred whole life policy that we can then pay the premiums for property and casualty, or, pay his lease. But essentially at the end of the day, what it does is it opens up that liquidity, right? And for a very small fee, and I tell people all the time, it's like, all right, if I were to tell you to give me $5,000 and I told you it's guaranteed 100%, or you can have, my 2.5 kids, my white picket fence in the house, and I'll give you back $100,000, and it's guaranteed. What are you going to say? Like, absolutely. I'll be happy to take that $100,000 for that $5,000, right? And that's essentially what it is. The cost is so small, but the return is so big that people are like, there's no way that this is even possible, until I show them the tax code.
Do you find that that's usually what holds people back from taking this kind of step? Is the disbelief?
I honestly think it is the lack of education that people even have on it. And that's, that kind of goes back to the community initiatives, is I don't care, the amount of money that anybody has. Everybody deserves the same type of education. Everybody deserves the same type of knowledge, right? And, if this is something that even some CPAs don't even know about, then we have an issue, right? Yeah. We have an even bigger issue. So, I think it's the education behind it, which then, yes, leads to, oh, there's got to be something off about this, or there's got to be something, it sounds scammy, but anything that anybody doesn't know about, that's what they're going to think, right? I mean, that's a human natural reaction to be like, oh, I don't know. I've never heard of that before. But, and then it just takes a couple people to try it, and you can see all of it on Reddit or, Facebook. There's not a lot about it, but there is enough about it to where people can get a good idea of, what it is, how it benefits you, and then, who has used it, and, reviews and such like that. But there's really not a lot of companies out there that even do it. There's not a lot of CPAs that even know what it is. So from that standpoint, I believe it starts with education.
Do you feel like, if I had no clue, right, and this is the first time I'm hearing about this, and I'm like, okay, James, sure, right, what would be the prompt I ask ChatGPT? Hey, could you explain me how XYZ works? to help them gain a little bit of knowledge to at least start, dipping their toe into this possibility before they reach out to you?
Absolutely. If I were to put something into Chat GPT, which I do a lot because I learn a lot from it. I go down rabbit holes all the time. But if I was somebody out there that didn't necessarily know what cost segregation was, and I had this technology at my disposal, I would just simply ask it, hey, look, I've got a commercial building that's 82,000 square feet, and my cost basis was say $2.3 million. Does it make sense to do a cost segregation study? And it's gonna give you every single bit of what you need down to the asset. It's gonna give you everything.
What do you think the dumbest thing that wealthy people do with their money tends to be?
The dumbest thing that wealthy people do?
Dumbest thing, yeah.
Oh Lord.
That you've had experience with.
That I have had experience with. I wish I could sit here and say that wealthy people are, that I've seen some stupid things, but to be completely honest with you, I would have to say it's probably giving their wealth to their children that I've never worked for anything.
That's fair.
To be honest with you.
That's fair.
Most of them are pretty good with their money, which is why they're wealthy. But I would definitely have to say that I've seen quite a few of them, buy kids Beamers and, Ferraris, and they've never even worked at McDonald's a day in their life.
Yeah. So if you had your druthers, what would be the path you would lead someone down going, look, besides dropping that kind of money on a brand new car, why don't we think about these things for your kids to maybe set them up for their future, and then they can still have a little bit to buy a car. Maybe they don't get to introduce it as that's my BMW.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So do you mean more or less, I guess, from like an investment standpoint, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm a huge proponent of whole life, right? There's a lot of people out there, that are just very, they're very naive to whole life, to IULs. And to be honest with you, I used to sell a whole lot of IULs, and that's the Index Universal Life policies. But there's so many fees that go into it. I'm not saying it's a bad product. And typically, just like every tool out there, there's a different tool for a different problem, right? And so you have a different solution. But I'm a huge proponent of whole life. I've probably read, what would the Rockefellers do? Probably 10 times. I absolutely love the book. But what it basically just explains, how the Rockefellers stayed wealthy, through trusts, through implementing, certain business entities on these trusts, and then doing the implementation of the whole life policies. Because yes, they are tax deferred. They're not necessarily tax free. Because there is obviously a cost basis to that as well. But I'm a huge proponent of whole life. It does build cash value completely tax free at that rate, 5 to 6%. And I've got one for my son. Actually, I've got one for all three of my children, including myself and including my wife. But what I love about it is, the simple fact that I can take a loan from it. So, if I have $100,000 in cash value and say $1 million in death benefit, I can take $50,000 in cash value. I can go ahead and take it out, and I'm still going to compound on that 100,000. So now my money is uninterrupted, right? And that is the Rockefeller method. You just keep reinvesting back into that. I do that for a lot of my real estate investor clients. What we do for them, because obviously, you have gap funding and you have hard money lending, and a lot of them, they don't want to have to go that route because they don't want to pay 13, 14, 15% interest. So what do? We go ahead and we take that cash and we front load it into a whole life. Say it's $1 million. We'll go ahead and front load $1 million into that policy. And then what we can do with that is then we have a premium. Say I just did one for a guy. It's about $286,000 going in there per year. But then now we can compound that at 5 to 6% interest per year, and we can take from that, and then we can go buy property, or we can go buy buildings, or we can pay this or we can pay that tax free, and then we can take the net operating income from that piece of real estate and then put it back into the policy and just keep doing it and just keep doing it. It's just a perpetual money making machine.
Yeah. Would that be like if I asked you what's a simple move that someone could do? A simple move that someone could do, most likely that they haven't even looked into yet. Would that probably one of the main ones you'd look at?
A whole life?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
For, typically, I do work with, higher net worth individuals, typically business owners, but I do obviously do some individual financial planning as well. But that's typically the first thing that I'm going to start off with. And now, unless we do, some type of trust, or, we set up some type of, investment accounts, for these children, or, something like that. But, or, 529s, for college, stuff like that. But typically I like to set up the whole lives just to kind of get that family going. So they can really, and really it's to mitigate the taxes, right? The capital gains tax on if we did investments somewhere else. I do a lot of alternative investments as well, but yeah, for a family of four, or a family of three, that's just kind of getting going, and they just need some type of, some type of investment account that's not going to take their taxes. Even like a CD is still going to have income tax on that as well. But it's also not going to get 5 to 6% interest tax free either.
Yeah.
So you kind of can get away from the whole entire tax problem that you have, and that's really what I strive to do for my clients, is to be able to mitigate as many taxes as I possibly can for them.
Sure. Have you found anything? Obviously, you deal with a lot of founders and very wealthy individuals. Have you found anything that kind of is a streamline that everyone seems to have a little bit of this personality trait, or something that is connecting the dots for these guys and ladies and gents?
Like, as in terms of, kind of, like a singular personality trait that they all tend to have in common.
Yeah, something that always tends to go along with these high individuals.
Type A personalities.
Yeah.
It's typically type A. Typically people that have, and funny enough, the majority of them have had some type of, childhood, traumas, that have gone on, or it's been chaos in their life, their whole entire life, and it's just kind of set them on this pace of being able to be adaptable to chaos. And really, that's what owning a business is. And typically, that's where your higher net worth individuals are. They're business owners, right? They're used to that chaos. They're very adaptable. So it's very interesting, aside from the money making side of the business, but to hear the stories of other business owners, because being a business owner, obviously myself, it's very interesting, to kind of see a day in the life of another business owner, and being able to kind of share our struggles, and kind of being able to share our stories, and being able to really fully understand, because there's so many people out there that I think probably every entrepreneur has a stage in their life, whenever they're starting on their entrepreneur journey, and they're realizing, okay, I'm not like everybody else. I'm very alone, right? It's very difficult out here, doing this by yourself, because your mind just thinks in a certain way, right? It thinks in a different way than a normal average person's mind thinks. And I remember, my own story. It's like, okay, like I know my whole entire life, like I was different, but I was also never shown, what it was maybe to be an entrepreneur. It was go to school, get a job, put into your 401k, pay your taxes, and, have your kids and move on.
Yeah.
But really, at the end of the day, it's so much more than that. And I feel like if people had the opportunity to kind of be able to understand entrepreneurship, from that standpoint, and then understand that some of their personality traits, like ADHD, it's not a bad thing, right? You can put those traits towards other characteristics, like entrepreneurship, that you would probably be very successful at. So from that standpoint, yeah, I definitely think, personality trait wise, being able to be adaptable, definitely type A, and thrive in chaos.
What was it that shifted? I assume you weren't a kid going, "I'm very financially savvy," right? What was the philosophy switch, or what happened to you that helped you kind of hone in on how you look at the world now?
Well, that is a loaded question, but what what I will definitely say, is I always knew, well, kind of, to go back a little bit, I was raised by a single mother. She worked, 3 jobs, pretty much all the time, just kind of be able to take care of us. And, dad left when I was like 2. And so, as a young man, obviously didn't really have that male guidance. And then obviously, my mom was, she was just, she was my mom. She didn't have, that type of education or something like that. And so but I always knew that, like, I always went down my own path and I always did my own thing. I always had to bump my head 500 times just to kind of find my trail. And I realized that I kind of always went against the grain, right? I always went against the grain. With pretty much with everything that I did. I was definitely not the most agreeable person ever. I always had a different idea of, maybe how things should go. And then when I started to get into the business world, even when I worked at Sears when I was like 17, I'm like, like this could be different. This could be better. Like they could save money here, but I didn't ever put 2 and 2 together. Right. Yeah. And then I went to school. And even then I didn't really put 2 and 2 together until I started my first business, and it failed, but that's okay. And then, then I went to work at Banker's Life, and I ran a pretty good sized team there. And then I'm like, okay, I need to do this can be different. I can't do marketing. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go off and do it. I'm just going to, obviously entrepreneurship is just in my blood, and maybe I'm unemployable. I don't know. And then whenever I did it, I absolutely fell in love with it. And it's never been the same.
That's great.
The ups and the downs are amazing.
I mean, hey, the downs are what teach us how great the ups are, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How big of a flip did fatherhood do for you when it came to your business?
Oh, Lord. To be honest with you, I had a little girl first, but I was, 24, 25, just, still trying to kind of find my way in life, getting in trouble, doing this, doing that, and it wasn't until last year I had my son. I've got a stepson, he's 14, he's my own too. But, when I had my baby boy, it was just a complete, like, I get to teach him this, right? Like I get to teach him entrepreneurship, right? Like I get to be able to be that example for him. So, I have him in here, when I'm doing team meetings, on Monday nights, I've got him sitting right here, and, he's on the calls too. All my boards that I have around my, around my room, I've got him in my arms, and we're just going to town. I listen to audiobooks on business pretty much every day in the car. So he's listening to those. And it's just such a cool experience to be able to share that, because you're basically raising a little you, right? And it's just, it's so cool.
Yeah, so. My wife's real not sure how she feels about that yet, because she's definitely a little me.
Y'all have...
we have one. She looks like my wife, but she acts like me.
Well, you're a handful, so.
Thanks, James. I appreciate that compliment. No well, dude, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I'm glad we got to make it happen. Where can everybody find you?
So I am pretty much everywhere. I've got a website. It's veridianplanning.org. And then you can also find us on Facebook at Veridian Strategic Planning Group. And then you can also find us on TikTok. It's Veridian SPG 25. And then you can also find us on Instagram at Veridian SPG 25 as well.
Love it. You guys know where to find him. And if you want to like this, share this, and leave us a comment, we'd appreciate that. And if you're looking to build your own podcast, reach out. Maybe we can help you out. James, see you on the next, my friend.
Thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.